We've seen it over and over again. AI is taking over our jobs. It is taking over our websites. The use of human connection is literally plummeting. So what do we do? Well, the answer is simple. You don't really do anything. I mean, these things are happening around us, but as you can clearly see, the necessity for jobs has not disappeared. Coding is not obsolete. We need coders more than ever. There's new branches opening up. There's a lot of optimistic ways of kind of looking at this scenario. However, what should you do as a coder? Now, obviously, I'm not a senior developer. I'm not this very trusty guy, but I've talked to senior developers before. I've talked to experienced people, and anyone who has experience and wants to maybe critique me on what I'm saying, go in the comments. But there is more opportunity right now than ever. It's just you're probably not seeing it from the right angle. And what do I mean by this? Well, let's get into it. We have the monthly questions asked on Stack Overflow. Now, why am I referring to this? This is a good anecdote because this literally shows you the downfall of human activity. So obviously we have COVID-19. Look at that spike. And we go down, down, down. ChatGPT comes along and now it had a little spike and now we're just kind of done for. We're back to the same place we were in 2010. Now, obviously we have new ways of getting our coding answers. That's true. As we can see, the need for humans is kind of what's being drawn out of this. We don't need humans as much anymore, or at least we don't need them in this position. And that's what I'm getting at right now. The positions are changing. If you were trying to go into college right now for computer science, it may not be the same as it was 5 years ago because it was kind of a big money trap. I mean, you can call it a trap at this point because people who go into it right now with little to no experience at all end up getting screwed over. The survival of the fittest was kind of the theme with computer science, but there are new opportunities arising. And the one I'm going to talk about is data science. And data science kind of, it's intertwined with machine learning. And now, what is it to make out of machine learning? So right now, if we go to our good old Google Trends, we can look at machine learning, and I bet you there's a fat spike. But, it's mediocre. It's not crazy, right? We go to computer science, and it'll probably be, there's a spike. And it's been up. And this is significantly higher than our good old machine learning. Although I bet if we look up coding, you'll probably see a lot of it. Yeah, there's a lot. But if we look up data science, okay, this is like really interesting data. What if we go to computer science? It has a lot of hype. We can see that there's a lot of hype going on. It goes up, down, up, down, up, down. But then we go to data science, and it gets this little hype here, but for the most part, it's kind of just, but look, over the past 12 months though, maybe down, but then spike, spike, spike. There's a lot of spikes in computer science. So it's the whole entire message is that data science is definitely, it's kind of more stable. Computer science, it's a challenging market. I have buddies who have more experience than I could even imagine, and they just can't do it. They can't. Something to pull out of this for sure would just be to adjust. Like, you can't stick with the same values you have. If you're reading books from the 90s or the early 2000s, it's probably best to not just stick to these things. There's a new world now. Those guys who wrote those books that you may have learned from, or these articles and these websites you may have learned from, may have not had the access to our good old ChatGPT. They may have not been able to use our good old AI inline text writing. There's awesome things. And we are actually able to perfect our code now. But you're really only able to perfect these things if you already know what you're doing, which is kind of the main challenge here. Of course, you should learn how to code. I mean, once you learn how to code and use the tools, the word obsolete kind of disappears. You are making the best version of a human coder possible. There's a lot to be made from this. I mean, almost all of my code would be not even really possible if it wasn't for AI. I mean, there's a lot of techniques I'm seeing here that I forget about. And they're like, hold on, dude, you can use this, you can use that. And it's like having two brains with you. It's sick. It's not something to be intimidated by. I think intimidation is definitely what's driving people nuts. People are going to feel so obsolete compared to AI that they'll just start telling themselves they can't code. And maybe that's why they don't. It's imposter syndrome. There's a whole video on imposter syndrome right now, and you've seen that the requirements for getting a job right now. CEOs are being greedy with AI, and there's no doubt. So it's understandable why you might be scared. You need experience to land your first job. There's a paradox here. You need experience, but you don't have a job. So you try to get a job to get the experience, but the experience is not there because you don't have a job. That would not be possible if it wasn't for AI. So there's definitely some downsides here. I'm kind of just spitting out a word salad at this point, but now that we understand that there is so much to learn now, there's so many different kind of areas to learn about, what should you do? Now, if I'll be honest, it's definitely not a good idea to try to learn everything. There's a lot of people out there who think that in order to be a computer science major or to be a coder, you need to know every single library and every single technique. But that's not true. You just need to know how to be versatile and solve every single problem possible. That's kind of the whole entire point. It's kind of silly to think, oh, can you code? Can you actually code if you don't know every single NumPy function? Like, who has ever said? No one's ever said that. You know what I mean? So I'd advise you focus on one area. I love backend. I think anyone who doesn't really know what they're doing, they just like coding in a language like Python or any sort of backend language. You can go to a backend roadmap and find out what that is, like Go. Just languages that are high level, they compat with most things. You may like backend. So you're not going to focus on every single Python library. I mean, there's too much to cover with that. So you focus on one thing. And I think with the introduction of AI, it feels like every single area is there's this stuff for everything now, because it's such an adaptive thing. And it's hard to even kind of put in the words, but the best thing to do is just focus on one thing. It's funny because I say all this stuff, I'm trying to word it in this new modern tone, but at the end of the day, almost every single thing that you could do, it just rolls back to the same principles that we've always known. Just get good at one thing. Don't be the jack of all, be the master of some things, or one, or whatever can probably get you some money, right? Don't think too much. Don't compare yourself to others. Keep your mentality strong, and don't let anyone fuck with your cadence, bro. For example, I'm getting in the back end, right? But that should not stop me from, learning on my own, right? But that means I focus on two things. I have my own little mini projects because you want to make coding fun. You don't want to be a little slave to the market. And then you have what you focus on. I'm trying to think of like an example that doesn't have to do with a calculator, like ruining math, because it didn't ruin math. I mean, it's better at math, right? I think we should look at AI in the same way. Like, how do you think, I don't know, miners, like the guys with the pickaxes, how do you think they felt when automatic tools came out? Oh, well, anyone can do it. Well, that ended up not being true. You needed someone who could actually do the job. And that's the same thing with AI. You just need someone who can use it to their advantage. It's the same basic thing. And you could try to spin that and say, counter it, but it just comes back and bites you in the ass every time. You just got to do the same stuff as always. Don't let anyone tell you not. But if I say that, I'll just sound like everyone else. But I have to make it cool, put a title, put a nice thumbnail, make you click on the video. You know what I mean? Anyway, though, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'll try to edit this to not be as much of a word salad as it was, but thank you too.